with my dear, sweet friend and one of my many loves, deep loves for many years, Mr. Keith Simmons, known as the six-string poet, for one thing. He wears many hats. He's got many talents. And one of them is that he and I have been Course in Miracles aficionados for many, many years. And so we're here today to talk about love and A Course in Miracles. So that is going to open up a whole can of worms. Yummy worms, delicious worms. There's such a thing. And before anything else, let me just ask you, Keith, how you are feeling today on Valentine's Day about talking about love and A Course in Miracles.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here talking about it, but I've been yearning to have someone in my life for a number of years. I've been solo, and it's like I would like to have someone in my life. And so, it gets to Valentine's Day, and looking at some of these chats that go online. There's, Facebook groups for people looking for people in that. And there's a couple that are like 40 and 50 and over. And there's been a lot of chatting on that area of who is looking and why they are, why they're not. Are they being successful? Are their accounts being hacked as a result? Are they being conned and everything? And it puts, so many different angles on just going out there and trying to find someone who is meaningful to you, that you feel you can love, that loves you back, and have an equal relationship. And yet you in listening to all these other people, I mean, there's so many different perspectives. Like I said, there's those that are looking, there's those that are settled in with someone and they have a day planned. There's others that don't know what they're doing. There's others that are all getting together and dancing tonight, and they're calling it the anti-Valentine celebration. So
that brings up something else that I want to kind of broaden the conversation to begin with, and then we can narrow it maybe into different areas. But so Valentine's Day, the word love is about love, right? It's about love. Now, what does love mean?
Oh.
Well, first of all, love, I just looked it up, and it says the word love was originally the oldest known word for this experience of care and desire and so forth is lube, if I'm saying it right. It's Leubh, which was used by the Proto-Indo-Europeans approximately 5,000 years ago. So that's where the word love comes from. All right. And it expresses that idea. However, in Greek, the Greek language, which is amazing, has many words for love, just because it expresses different characteristics or aspects of what love can be. And just quickly, I'll go through some of them because there are many, but the ones that I think most of the ones that we know are like eros, right, which of course is that physical animal attraction, like, like I want you. And so that's eros. Then there's philia, which is friendship, love, a friendly love, someone you really care deeply about and probably know for a long time, so philia, friendship, love. Then there's philotia, which is self-love. Now, it could be negative and it could be positive, because self-love can mean self-respect, but it can also mean egotism, right? So it has both those aspects to it. So you break these down even more. I mean, this is a simplification of all of these expressions. And then there's pragma, which you may not have heard of. You ever heard of pragma? That's a type of love, which is long-standing love, or pragmatic, from the word pragmatic, which means kind of practical, right? Practical love. So that could mean something like marriage for convenience. Like someone might marry someone to get into the country, right? To get a visa or whatever. Or someone maybe it's an arranged marriage. That would be a pragma type of love, right? So that's it's that kind of thing. It's more mental than just physical. And then there's agape, which I'm sure most people have heard. And we think of that as universal love, or love of, everyone, that you don't, it's not a single individual, but a sense of loving mankind, and having that universal experience of feeling loving. Then there's mania. We all know what that one is. Obsessive love, right? Usually not something we want to experience. And many movie stars and so forth have been maniacally loved by their followers, and that can be dangerous, right? And then there's storge, which is familial love. So you love people in your family, your children, your spouse, your husband, wife, whatever, cousins, uncles, what have you. Okay, so so you see, there's a broad spectrum when we use the word love, right? So I just wanted to start out with that idea, but we're talking about A Course in Miracles and love. So
Right.
I think there's a few things that I want to bring to the discussion about what A Course in Miracles says about love, because it may be very different from what many of us think of as love. As we started out at the beginning, when you started talking about wanting a relationship with someone, and all of those different things that can come into it. So before we turn to the Course in Miracles, did you want to add anything to what I've said so far?
No, I think no, we're fine.
You good? Yeah, you sure? Okay. All right. So our experience with A Course in Miracles and love is a unique experience, at least from my perspective, and I hope you agree.
Indeed.
Because, well, let me ask you, when you first started reading A Course in Miracles, and you started to come across the word love, what did you notice? What came up for you? Or what did you see about it?
I thought of the many different levels, or I'm not sure if it's aspects of love, but levels of love, like holding my children in my hands after their first breath on this planet. I mean, it was overwhelming love for them. It was unquestioned. I wanted to be there forever to protect them, and nothing could break that love, and nothing has. I may not agree with everything they do or every aspect of how they live their lives. That's not up to me. I just tried to guide them as best as I could, and I have my faults also. But love is it's you bring up all of these different words which speak of different aspects of love, and so that's all the ability to have different perspectives about this one word love. And so it depends on the situations, the relationships, everything, and it depends on our own perceptions. Like, what was love for me as a child? Was I loved by my parents? Did I feel loved? Did I grow up feeling loved? Or did I grow up feeling criticized and less loved than I would have liked, or things like that? And all of these things, your family of origin and the challenges we face in life, the people we meet, and as we gain knowledge, that all changes our perspective. And I would say that looking at love also, love can be pure love, or it can be very selfish love. But that just, if it's selfish love, people may come out and it may be very obvious to others, or it may be something that they hide within them, and they have a different outward appearance to others in order to be loved, I guess.
Are you talking about perception? I mean,
perception of how people, how people see themselves and see others. And I guess that can vary widely among all of us, based on how we grew up and what we stumbled through in life, and how our relations went. And so, it's such a broad area that, people will say, oh, I love that. People say, oh, I love my dog. I love my cat. And my dog and cat love me back. And, is that real? Do they have the ability to love as a human would love, or is it just they love the companionship? So it's
They love
all
the next meal they're getting is what they
they,
love.
they yeah. As my daughter's dog just walked in the door and and is talking to me saying, "Yeah, I love you too. Feed me."
Exactly.
But yeah,
But
so it
so
goes
getting
through
back,
the gamut, and it's and unfortunately, or I don't know, I guess unfortunate, um, that we use love to also say, well, that person doesn't love enough, or this person is so outward in their love, it's overcoming or whatever, or is that person truly expressing what they believe, or are they just saying they love someone else? And it can be all very confusing, and it's not always immediately obvious what they mean by the word love. It has to be part of a discussion.
of course. Well, now you're talking about how the ego perceives love, right? It's a very confusing situation, to say the least. However, from a course's perspective, we have two parts to our mind. One is the ego, which is always confused, always angry, always, worried, fearful, nervous, etc. And that's why love is such a thorny issue to begin with, right? Because we have all of those emotions mixed in, as opposed to the right part of our mind, or the where the Holy Spirit lives, where our true love is. Okay, because the love of the ego is temporal. We know this, right? I mean, it comes and it goes, it ebbs and it flows. Love in the ego is a very tenuous thing, for the most part.
That's how did you treat me recently, and why aren't you as loving as you were previously, or an
Well,
aspect like
sure,
that.
that, yeah, certainly comes into play. Yeah, of course. Or if, I mean, if we, and it happens, I mean, why is the divorce rate 1 and 2 or something like that?
Right.
Because people fall out of love, right? There's something happens, they meet somebody else or whatever. And of course, we have this idea of monogamy in this country where you can only love one person at a time. And so if you love 2 people, well, that's not good. So, okay, the relationship breaks. So we have a lot of problems in our ego thinking when it comes to love. However, on the other side, and this is getting more toward the agape that we had in the Greek word, right, of universal love, which is how God loves us, right? If you accept the idea of a universal principle, call it God, call it whatever, universal consciousness. I mean, the word doesn't matter, but it means it's something that connects all of us together, right?
Right.
That principle is the principle of true love, because that love doesn't change. It never changes. There's no end to it. There's no end. So what A Course in Miracles is here to tell us, or to help us accomplish, is to get to a place where we can experience that kind of love that God has for us, that universal consciousness has for us. It's unlimited. It's endless, right? So imagine a world where we could feel that way about everyone all the time. Can you imagine what this world would be like?
Oh my goodness, wouldn't it be a wonderful place to live?
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, there's so many challenges to it. There's our ego side saying, oh, well, this isn't, sufficient love, or that person doesn't love them, or they love themselves too much. But when you get to the other side, the spiritual loving, perhaps saying in connection with God love, um, we can just find peace with that once we make that connection, which is not, it takes time. It takes, meditation, and for me, reading, and many of the work lessons in the Course of Miracles, to put aside all of the chaff and flare and find out, well, really, who am I really? Because everything I'm seeing out there isn't me. That's just a reflection of what I see, the
Mm.
outside of me. Who am I inside here, in my heart, in my soul, in my right mind, my correct mind? that is thinking without the confusion of the ego going, oh no, you're wrong, you don't love yourself that much, or always questioning, oh, did I lock the door when I leave, did I leave the stove on, did la di da di da, and always the negative thoughts that the ego likes to or insists on bringing in. And if we don't get control of that, we just live a life with less purpose overall, I would think. Because what would be our purpose? We're just reacting instead of creating our own lives.
Oh, I love that. Yes, absolutely. And so a good example of what you said about in the lessons, I just want to read a little bit from lesson 67, which is love created me like itself, with a capital I. That itself is that universal consciousness,
Okay.
right? So it says, today's idea is a complete and accurate statement of what you are. You are love. You are love. We're not in love or moving toward love or falling in love. We are love in our true, as you said, in our true nature. That's our true
Right.
nature, is love. And how do we know that? How do we know that that's so?
How do we know it's so? I find it in like quiet moments. It doesn't need to be meditation. Meditation does do that. Sometimes quiet moment, or just stretching out in a yoga position that I can just relax my mind, take a couple of deep breaths and just set my mind in a different direction, put everything else aside and just say, okay, I'm just here. And what do I feel? And I may not feel it immediately, but when I put time in for my own peace of mind, there's always some reward coming from it. And sometimes it's subtle and it comes a day later, and it can be immediate. But I think we're impatient. Our ego wants the answer immediately. But if we just put the time in and just say, okay, I'm keeping the clutter out, and even if it didn't work today, let me do it again. Let me put 5 minutes in. Just try 1 minute of silence, and then try to make it 5 minutes of silence and 10 minutes, and see what comes into your mind. And you find that once you put the negative thinking away, there's just peace of mind and a very comforting feeling from the universe.
Exactly, peace of mind. So you made that connection that is, to me, so essential to the idea of what the Course is teaching, which is that true love is peace of mind, and that's why it's eternal, and that's why it's changeless, because peace of mind is something we can always have. We may not choose to have it. We may let that ego get in there, right, and mess up the works and do its thing. However, behind that or underneath it, the peace is there waiting. It's waiting very patiently for us to give up the chaos and return to that state that's always there for us, always. So, and that can be equated with love, self-love or self-love. I like the idea of self-love with a big capital S. Self-love,
right?
Meaning the self that's connected to everything, to all. We're all connected. And that's what true love really is, and what we're really seeking, but we don't know that, right? We don't know that when we're in our ego. We don't know that if we only think we're an ego. It's only until we begin to explore the possibility that maybe there's something like Helen and Bill said to one another. They said, there's something more. There must be another way. There must be another way of living in the world, okay? There must be, because chaos and confusion and conflict and hatred and depression and all that stuff, it can't be what God wants for us. It cannot be. God, not if God is a God of love, right? That's what everybody says, right? God is a God of love.
Right.
Well, if that's true, then how on earth can, and I mean seriously, on earth, can we expect that love can be peaceful? Because this world doesn't seem to be that way at all.
Well, we have to use different antenna. I feel that way. It's like when I'm in that point of peace, and calmness. And yes, you do feel a greater sense of love, and it makes it ends up in a more positive attitude. And the
Mhm.
more that you reach out for that and allow yourself to have those quiet moments, the more it builds up the well of love within you. And eventually you start realizing that, well, you know, it's something that we all have. It's available to all of us. Maybe we
Mhm.
don't all take advantage of it, or maybe we don't know how to get there. And that's a big portion of, what you bring to the table is how do we get there to find these quiet moments, which ultimately fill us with a different, I don't know, spirit, Holy
Mhm.
Spirit coming into us or something like that. And then you start looking at this and you say, well, my perspectives are changing because I'm more uplifted. I've lost a lot of my negativity. This is, you wake up to have a brighter day each day, and and then you start saying, well, I used to view people separately from myself, but how are we connected?
Yeah.
And that becomes, compassion, spreading compassion throughout our lives, throughout the world. Which, as you said, wouldn't it be a different world if we had many, many millions, billions more with that perspective on life? But usually we feel insufficient. I mean, I think of Valentine's Day, and here we are on Valentine's Day, and it came to me that, well, the show of love, starting in an engagement, it's the engagement ring, the diamond ring, but it wasn't always so. We didn't used to look at it that way. It was, almost 100 years ago that De Beers Corporation, who had the the corner on the diamond market, came out with this campaign of, say it with diamonds, express your love through diamonds. And so
Mm.
now when someone gets a ring, it's like, oh, is that a big enough diamond? Did you deserve a bigger one or a smaller one? Oh, he must really love you. Look, he must have spent 15, $20,000 on that ring, or, and people, even if they don't say it, it's in the back of their minds. Well, oh, he could have done better, or he didn't do, and it's like, and we've used that as a symbol, which doesn't have much truth to it, really, because the love is within those two people that just got engaged or just got married. It's not on any outward display of what they're wearing or gifting to each other. That is, a display of how much they do love each other. But it doesn't. That ring doesn't say love. I mean, people wear their wedding bands around, and they've had a terrible relationship for umpteen years.
That's
Where's
right.
the love behind that? But we look at those rings as a definition of love in a certain way.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Yeah, love is an experience that is totally internal. But what the ego does is it tries to externalize it and put it out in the world in some form, right? In some form. So, and that's the difference between the eros type of love and the agape type of love, because the agape love, which is the universal love of God for us and us for our source, is has nothing to do with anything physical at all, at all. So, and I wanted to read something here from the text in the course, and what it does is it talks about, we're all teachers, right? We're all teachers to each other. You don't have to go to school to be a teacher. We're all teaching each other every minute of every day. Uh, who we think we are and who we think you are, the other person is, through our relationships, right? So the course says you can't not teach. We're always teaching. But what are we teaching? And this is what we want to get in touch with. We want to understand, what is it that I am trying to teach while I'm living in this world? Do I want to teach love, or do I want to teach the opposite of love, which is not hate in the course? The opposite of love in the course is fear, because hatred comes from a fearful
Right.
mind, right? So that's the real emphasis, the real beginning of of fear, of the opposite of love is fear. So So what do we want to teach? You know, we want to teach what we believe we are, right? So it's really important, and the Course stresses this a lot, that we need to learn how to see ourselves as holy. Imagine how many, I mean, do you get up in the morning and say, oh, good morning, I'm feeling very holy today? Probably not. Probably, I mean, you know, I maybe some people do. I tend to do that more these days because I focus on it, but I don't think it's what most people do. So, but to teach holiness, we have to feel holy, right? To teach love, we have to feel loving. To teach peace, we have to be peaceful, right? So what it says here is to have peace is to teach peace. And by teaching peace, you must learn it yourself, because you cannot teach what you're still dissociating. And that's what we do. We dissociate love and peace, and we put it out there, and then we try to find it. We say, oh, it's out there. It's in this person.
That's
it's
right.
in that relationship. It's in that object, right? The ring. I get the diamond ring, and that'll
That's
show
right.
love, right? So we say, okay, it's out there. So that's a dissociation. So we have to stop. We have to realize that we're doing that. And then only thus can you win back the knowledge that you threw away. Again, because it's always there. It didn't go anyplace. We just turned our heads and chose not to see it. So he says, an idea that you share, you must have. It awakens your mind through conviction of teaching it. Everything you teach, you are learning. Teach only love and learn that love is yours and you are love. Okay, so that's the Course's viewpoint of what love is, and where it begins. It begins with moi, as Miss Piggy used to say, right? Begins with me, begins inside of each and every one of us, to recognize our own ability to be loving and to be lovable, right? Lovable. I think that you were talking about that early on in our discussion about if you don't feel good about yourself, or you don't have a good sense of self-worth, that you know, that's going to create problems, and indeed it will. Indeed it will. So
it creates uncertainty, which is out of, you know, a fear item. And when you have those uncertainties that you carry around, then it prevents you from being a more positive person. So I would think, you know, there's many people out there that are negative and they don't find much happiness in their life. They also are negative towards the other people around them. You know, it's sort of like acting out, I would say, just because they haven't resolved their own emotional issues, and getting closer to a point where you at least approve highly of yourself, even if you haven't gotten to love. It makes a remarkable difference, and it's the way you carry yourself and the words you speak. And you don't have to go out there and try and sell it. You just have to display it, and others will see it and go, ooh, what's that person got going for him? I want some of that. And but there's so much in, and it's hard because our whole society is very, you know, Western society, very commercialized, and it's, who am I? Well, it's, you know, what is the latest style I'm wearing? Oh, did I buy a nice enough car to impress people? Oh, does that make me feel good? Well, when someone says, hey, that's a really great car, I go, oh, you know, thank you. I mean, I'm not in that market, but, you know, it's like, you know, I can understand, but it doesn't say that that person's a good person, that they treat their family and children well, that they treat others fairly. It just says, look at me. I've got the latest fashion. I've got the nicest car. I've got the biggest house. I take the greatest vacation. But what are they underneath all of that is really what they carry forward every day. And if you carry that forward every day, if you carry a good self-image around, you really don't need a lot of other things around you to prove your worth. So there's a very, you know, there's a split between our own spiritual beliefs, our feelings about ourselves, and the whole quality of commercialism outside of that, which is in front of us. As soon as we open our eyes, there's something we're being sold. And it's What is it going to do? Oh, it's that bigger diamond ring. It's that nicer car. It's, you can't be you. You can't be a complete you unless you own all of these things. But then, life turns around and people, sometimes they lose a job, they face financial hardship, and then they can't afford that grand house and they can't afford that car. And their whole life comes tumbling down because they've filled their life with who are they based on what they own and how they look to others, but they don't understand who they are truly.
Right, right. Yeah. I think it's important to always, come from our own space, learn, because I never know what anybody else is thinking or doing. I can guess, and I may be right and I may not, but I know if to me, that's a waste of time in a sense, because, what does that do for me? I mean, it really is not helpful in any way. It's really, and it may sound selfish, maybe that sounds selfish, but in truth, it stops me when I'm thinking about what other people think, right? Instead of what I think, then I am dissociating, as I said before, from my peace, because there
Right.
is no peace in doubt and self-negation. There's no peace there. I have to feel good about me. And so I need to do my own self-exploration and know where I'm coming from so that I can be in the world in a peaceful way, in a loving way. So I can be loving in all situations. And I'm going to give you an example. Not telling you the whole story, but I had a very intense situation very recently with a person, and it was surprise. It was a total shock to me that because everything seemed to be going really well, and I thought this is going to be terrific. We're going to have a lovely time, and then all of a sudden, it turned, and this person just suddenly had a million problems, and all kinds of things didn't seem right. And I was like, I was just like, I was speechless. I didn't know what to make of it. Like this just turned on a dime. All of a sudden things weren't great anymore. And so we went back and forth. We went, just to make a long story short, we went back and forth, and I was trying to defend myself because I couldn't understand what had happened. So and then I just got still, like you said, and go into that quiet place. And I went into that quiet place, and I just asked, please help me understand what I can do to resolve this issue, because I had no clue. I was still in a state of like, how did I get into this? I didn't understand it. So, and what I got, the answer that I got might seem bizarre, but I had been in a yoga class that morning, and the yoga teacher read a passage, and it was, let me see if I can remember it. You can rise like a lotus flower. You can rise from the mud and let your light shine. Something like that. Okay. So this is what I said to this person, and which, where did that come from, right? And so the answer I got back was, and you can too. And I said, and so then I said, yes, that's absolutely right. And I said, thank you. That is so true. And I'm sending you love. I'm sending you love.
That's great.
And that person came back and said, I'm sending you love too. And that was the end of it. That was the end of it. Haven't had a false word since then. So the shift, that's what I want to talk about. Love, right. True love allows ourselves to shift out of our ego from that need to be defensive and take everything, personally and, all that kind of stuff, to a place of universal acceptance and love. I just want to say one more thing about that, because what I knew was I could not change this person's mind. I wasn't there to do that. I was there to express what I knew the truth was. And that's all I did.
And that's the best thing that you can do, because that's, a much purer form of, coming from your heart, and not being reactive to someone else, that outside influence. If someone in the middle of a conversation gets highly accusative, it's taken me a long time until I realized, I feel well enough about myself. I don't have to argue who I am with them. I don't, and the easiest way is, if they say something and they're looking for a rise out of me, I just don't respond. I'll respond when it's necessary, but if someone is just looking to take an oppositional view, I don't have to defend my point of view. That's a
Right.
choice. If I want to defend my view, I can
Mhm.
just say, oh, okay, and leave it at that. And that pretty much ends the arguments, unless they have a few other issues that they want to, go forward with me. And, and ultimately, maybe they'll get the message that their approach just isn't working. Well, it won't work with me anyway, when I'm in my right mind, whichever side that is. But yeah,
Right.
so so what we feel, if we feel that it's as they say, a loving universe, um, uh, you know, it wasn't created so that we go through all of these issues. We do because I guess the human mind is kind of lazy, and we have to be shaken out of it and challenged in order to find, oh, there is that other side. Because we don't automatically think from birth, oh, I'm a loved creature, mom and dad love me. But then, oh, these kids at school when I was, in first grade, they were picking on me. They don't, and you're dealing with non-love at a case like that, criticism, or kids making fun of each other. And I guess those traits sometimes even grow up into being adults with many of the same perceptions that they haven't questioned.
They
And
haven't questioned
they're
exactly. They
stuck
haven't.
in they're
They're
stuck in
stuck
their own
in
mud.
the past, in the past. Absolutely. Let me read this. Do you realize that the ego must set you on a journey which cannot but lead to a sense of futility and depression? That's where our ego leads us, futility and depression. To seek and not to find is hardly joyous, right? Because the ego says, oh, it's out here, it's over there, go here. And we run all over the place. And do we find it? Maybe for a teeny little while,
For the
but then it
moment, yeah.
disappears again. Then it disappears again, right? So here he says, um, is this the promise you would keep? The Holy Spirit offers you another promise, and one that will lead to joy. For his promise is always seek and you will find. And under his guidance, you cannot be defeated. His is the journey to accomplishment, and the goal he sets before you, he will give you. He will never deceive you because he loves you. So again, the love of God or your higher self or universal consciousness, again, doesn't matter what the wording is, you find the words that fit for you,
Right.
um, is where we're going to find true love. It's not in another person. It's not there. It's here.
But it's
And then
Valentine's Day. It must be in another person.
no, it's in the box of chocolate that I'm gonna get. You're gonna get
Oh,
this in me, right?
okay.
You give me that box of chocolate, right?
They're in the mail. Yeah.
So yeah, it's not out there. It's not out there. So and that's the point that I wanted to get across in our discussion today. And I think everything that we've said kind of has brought that idea to fruition, right? That we understand that that love in its highest expression here, as long as we're in a body, still has to come from within me.
Right.
It's not in the other person that I have to kind of grab it, get it and kind of yank it out, somehow. It's about allowing other people to love me because I know I deserve to be loved.
Right. You tap into a different loving force, perhaps, and then you say, oh, that felt so good. And often I'll forget, but then I'll ultimately remember I need to be there again and again and again. Um, And I had previously mentioned to you at a different time, a friend of mine, he pictured it as, look at this long, all of these electrical wires between utility poles. And imagine that that's just a flow of love. And every time you pass that utility pole, you feel a little burst of love. Every time, okay, I'm connected again. And then you connect again when you get to the next pole. But sometimes in between that, you lose it, and those wires fall to the ground and they start sparking and things go wrong. And that's how I kind of look at the ego mind, is when it grounds out. But
Mhm.
if you can keep that cable off of the ground, um, and be in touch at whatever level, then that continuity becomes more and more easy to achieve.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So it's about, fundamentally, it's about our desire to truly experience love in its essence, for what it really is, not in the object, not to objectify love and say, oh, I know you'll love me if you give me the ring or the chocolate or whatever it is, but because I'm lovable, because I know I'm lovable, right?
Right.
So if I know I'm lovable, then why shouldn't you love me? Again, it may be filial love, it may be storgia, familial love, or agape, universal love. We're not talking about eros necessarily, but in other words, love is the concept that brings people together, and that's really what we hope for. I think every human that walks this earth wants to love and be loved, right? I really think deep
I would
down
think
we all
so.
want that.
I
We
think that's
all
a
want that.
universal need.
Yeah.
Just just to feel good about ourselves is can be life changing. If we've beaten ourselves up for so many years, or we
Hmm.
came from a background of abuse as a child, or things like that, we may think I'm unlovable, but we're all lovable because we are made from love. We were all created with love in mind. And when we can get to that point, it slowly changes our perception to who we are and who we can be. It's a road with many bumps and holes in it, but it always leads forward to something better.
And you just brought up the one last thing I want to say about love, and you just really sparked it perfectly, is that love has nothing to do with the past. Nothing. What happened in the past is over, done, finito. It's not here. So if I'm thinking about something that happened, last week or last month or when I was 2 years old or
Yeah.
whatever, if that's what I'm thinking about, can I really be loving?
Well, you can't live in this moment, as you would
Uh,
say, or
yeah,
be the
yeah.
best person going forward if you've dragging all this baggage
Love
with
is
you.
not in the past. It's not there. It can't be there because the past is
Mm.
over, over. It's not here. So we're imagining something. That's an image
Yeah.
that we're making that separates us from love. To bring the past into the moment now and say that's the kind of love I want is futile. It's futile because whether
Yeah.
I didn't get enough love or I got too much love or I had love and now I don't have love, any of those things
Yeah, that's
is,
like grasping, grasping for something that's
yeah,
already
yeah.
gone. It's it's yesterday.
Right. So we do ourselves a disservice when we do that. So I really wanted to bring, thank you for
Right.
helping me bring that point up, because the love is now. It's right here in this moment. And that's why we can love everybody, because we can be with whomever we're with and be totally in love with that person at that moment. Now,
Yes,
that
yes.
doesn't mean that you can't love the next person in the next moment. You know what I'm saying? It's in the moment that it's happening that it matters, and that's where it's going on. So if we keep all of those ideas in mind, I think we'll have a better understanding of what love is and how we can actually manifest it in our lives, because it's up to us to do that, right? It's not, as I said, it's not out there.
Isn't that a great thing to manifest? Yeah.
Yeah, and to know that, really, to actually know that it's not out there, it's here. I'm the one that has to manifest it, and I can, because of who I am. I'm part of creation. God loves me just as much as God loves everything and everybody else. So there's no reason why I can't manifest that love just the same as anybody else. And that's what the Course says. We are all equal in God's love. All equal. There's no such thing as more love or less love for this person or that situation or whatever. God is like the sun, just shines and radiates that light down on everything without, without making exceptions. There's no exceptions.
And that was my mention earlier, was like antenna. When you become somewhat accustomed to that, and your antenna are in tune to that, and away from what our eyes see and our ears hear in the physical world, and the craziness and all of the doubt that creates, it's like it brings a point of certainty and confidence into us, and it's so much easier to be who we are, because we're not there questioning, oh, well, who am I? Did I act right this time? Did I say the right thing? It's just, if you're comfortable with ourselves, we may not always have the best words at every moment, but our calm is going to be expressed in our conversations and how we carry ourselves and throughout our lives.
Right. And we feel each other on multi levels, right? It's not just about the 5 sensory levels that the ego accepts as our reality. Not at all. Love is much, much grander and greater than that. And I think, if anything else, if nothing else, out of this conversation, what I walk away with, knowing, is that we're only scratching the surface of understanding what love is. At least I am. I'm only scratching the surface, and it excites me, actually, to know that, because it's like, maybe tomorrow I'm going to have an even better understanding of what love is, and isn't that exciting? So I look forward to that, and I'm happy to know that, because this experience for me should always be a one of another step forward, another awareness, another opening, and a continued growth. As long as I'm breathing here, I want to be growing and learning more about how to find peace of mind by loving, right? Because today's Valentine's Day.
It's an easy equation. It's not always right there. It's not always that close. We have to reach for it. We have to want it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. We have to want it. Yep. And that's the biggest, the willingness. The Course uses the word willingness is key, because until you're willing, you're in your ego. You're going to resist. You're going to resist peace. You're going to resist joy. You're going to resist love. And why do that to yourself?
Well, I think some of my greatest moments of learning are when I've been down on my knees, affected by a broken relationship or a loss of someone, something that affects me deeply on an emotional level. And when I hit something like that, I have the faith. I've learned I have the faith to get back up. But then I find that after that point, and many other obstacles that challenge us through life, that each time you face the obstacle, rather than running away from it, that you come back so much stronger.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to end. Thank you. That's wonderful, Keith. Yeah. Let's be stronger every day, every single day. All right. So I just want to mention that on next week, on Monday evening, that's February 20th, I will be starting a group. And Keith, I'm fully expecting you to be present.
Oh, I better be.
You better be.
She won't love me otherwise.
That's right. Yeah, you'll be on my list. So Yeah, so Monday evening at 7 p.m. EST, we will be doing, starting the study of A Course in Miracles. We'll be reading a passage. I'll start off with a little guided meditation just to get us centered and focused. And then we're going to read a particular passage from the Course and talk about it and see. And then most importantly, and to me, this is the whole point of studying A Course in Miracles, is to take the principles that we learn from it and put it into practice in our daily life. It's eminently practical, and it should be. Spirituality is not woo-woo. Spirituality, if it's used properly, is meant to be used in your every moment of every day, minute of your life. And if it isn't, then you're missing the point of what it's all about. So come and study with us, and let's enjoy the experience of growing together on this journey toward peace of mind. And I love that, Keith, because that was your expression that you gave me. Peace of mind is the goal that we have when we study A Course in Miracles. So, Keith, you got any closing comments there?
No, no. Thank you very much for having me here. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
And I love you. It's Valentine's Day, and you've always been a very close friend in there for me. I really value the relationship on a deeper level.
Absolutely. I don't know how many years it is now, but yes, absolutely. Yeah. I treasure your being in my life. So thank you. And thank you to everybody who's caught any part of this. And we'll see you again, hopefully real soon.